Hey, it's your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man here, and I'm swinging by the Geekcast Radio Network.
Welcome to The Pull Bags, Back Issue Classics. Join us as we talk about comics from yesteryear, from DC, Marvel, and more. So open your ears to hear our discussion of the older continuities, as the Back Issue Classics are also what's in The Pull Bag.
How am I supposed to fight advanced alien technology with a stupid stick?
Hello and welcome to The Pull Bag. This is one of the Origins episodes. I am your host, TFG and Mike, and if this is your first time tuning in, the Origins episodes are it's a discussion episode. It's something that I was interested in doing when Steve Megatron and I first did episode 3 of the show way back when in 2013. Discussion based on, friends of mine or people that I've come across to on the internet, people that actually will respond if I send them a message, unlike super famous guys with glasses and all that other stuff. But anyway, Origins episodes are myself and my guest, me asking them how they get into comics, which do they prefer, which company, whether it's the M or the D, or others like IDW or etc., etc., etc. And this time, coming to us from Positively Nerdy is Ryan. Hello, Ryan.
Oh, Mike, thank you so much for having me on, man.
Yes. Ryan, this is his first time on the GCRN, but he's actually met members of the GCRN because he's up where Grand Con happens.
Yes, the Great White North of Michigan, especially the last few weeks. And actually, it was a bizarre story because I knew they were going to be there from looking at the Grand Con stuff, and I was like, well, that's great because I know people that know them, so that'll be fun. Basically, was what it was. And I'm walking by the booth, and I see this guy I know, has lost 100 pounds, but I still recognized him as none other than Art Danner of Off the Cuff, and he was my supervisor. I worked at a movie theater in college, and he was my supervisor. And it just blew me away. I had no idea he was part of Geekcast. It totally floored me. And I spent a good chunk of the day at the booth with the guys just talking, and it was awesome. So I've met a few of you and actually introduced myself to you, even though it was the other Mike. I got really confused.
Yeah. When you get too many of us in a room, it's like, which one?
They're like, yeah, that's not the Mike you're thinking of. And I was like, oh, well, it's still nice to meet you. That's fine. Yeah. So. It was a good time, though, at Grand Con.
But yeah, it looked like it was, those guys are having a really good time up there. Your show, Positively Nerdy, I think and I said this to you off air, I think the only episode I've listened to is the interview with Bobby Curnow from IDW.
Yes, yep.
For the Turtles, because it was right around the time, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. It was maybe a few months or maybe a few weeks after Free Comic Book Day last year or something like that.
I know it was after Free Comic Book Day. I know it was in the build up to City Fall. We were
right, exactly. It was just starting City Fall for the TMNT ongoing.
Yep.
And I listened to it because I wanted to know more about the new adventures.
Okay.
I'm so far behind on the regular ongoing for TMNT.
Yeah, it is actually just after Free Comic Book Day. I'm just looking it up right now. It's about 2 weeks after Free Comic Book Day. So
yeah, so that was very, very cool.
We did actually talk to Eric Burnham, who wrote the issue from Free Comic Book Day. Also,
did you really?
We also talked to him, and that was a blast too because he's a really, really fun guy, and he does the Ghostbusters comic for IDW as well. And the Free Comic Book Day New Adventures issue was just terrific. And then that next Saturday, it was almost the exact same story in the cartoon. And
yeah,
it worked out. It worked out pretty well.
It did work out well. I think the comic pulled it off a little bit better, though.
That's what we told Eric, man. We were like,
I love the new TMNT from Nickelodeon. I really do. I don't get a hair up my ass about, Rob Paulson will always be Raphael, blah, blah, blah. don't get me wrong. I love Rob Paulsen. I loved him as Raphael, but he's doing a new character now, and he's made Donnie really, really cool.
Oh, he's killing it as Donnie. I almost like his Donnie more than Raph. So don't worry about ruffling feathers. I'll ruffle even more. I think I like his Donnie better than his Raph.
It's just one of those things. Like, the episode. I don't remember which one it was, but I have the clip. It's how am I supposed to fight highly advanced alien technology with a stupid stick?
Yeah.
I
think that was early on, because that's always been
it was very early on.
That's always been a fan thing, right? How does he do it with a wooden stick when everybody else has got bladed weapons, or at least nunchucks?
So let's jump back into the comics here. Normally the first question I ask everybody was there a certain person in your life, your mom, your dad, your uncle, your grandparents, was there someone that said, "Here, Ryan, read this and go away and leave me alone," instead of throwing you in front of the TV?
Well, that's not quite how it happened, but it would absolutely be my dad. My dad read comics, so I read comics. Awesome. The doing things my dad did stopped at a certain age, obviously, but as a youngster, I was just fascinated by all of the comics that my dad had, and he was a huge Spider-Man and Fantastic Four fan. He had pulls for any time those characters showed up. He got those issues. So I through Spider-Man and Fantastic Four, that's when I got introduced to X-Men or Avengers, because they'd show up, or Spider-Man would show up in Avengers or vice versa. So that was, it was all Marvel all the time. As far as I know, my dad did not read any DC. So I totally grew up on Marvel. I'm probably one of the few people who knew about all of the characters before those early 90s cartoons hit. I knew who all those characters were before those cartoons started. And in addition to just the comics my dad brought home and, I got to read after he was done with them kind of thing, the He-Man mini comics that came with the action figures, I loved those things. And I would reenact them. I'd read them, and then I'd get as many toys as I could to reenact what I had just read and that kind of stuff. So I don't ever remember there not being comics. Even if I wasn't quote unquote reading them and I was just looking at the pictures, I've always been exposed and surrounded by comics. And it was a wonderful, wonderful day when my dad was like, "I don't want this anymore," and I got all of his comics. I like to say I inherited them, but that implies my father died. So people would always tell me they were sorry, and I'm like, "Wait, what? Oh, no, he's still alive. He gave them to me. He passed them down, I guess, is better than inherited." So I've got some early Fantastic Four and Amazing Spider-Man gems in my collection, and it hasn't stopped. I've got a little bit of a gap between where my dad stopped and where I started to fill out, but other than that, I've got almost every single Amazing Spider-Man issue. So,
wow,
yeah, I don't have the really early stuff. My first one is in the upper 40s, and from there on, so it's a little too expensive to start filling in lower than that, though. So.
Yeah, especially when you have an Amazing Fantasy 15. That's
well, my dad loves to tell the story about how he had it, and Grandpa put it in the fire because it's just some dumb old comic book. My dad never tires of telling that story.
Wow.
And I think I shed a tear every single time. I'm like the Vision,
crazy.
Just that one little tear.
That's kind of like my dad selling off. I've told this story many times before. But,
well, it's new to me, Mike. Go ahead.
Yeah, I know. It's not new to the Geekcast Radio Network listeners. It might be new to Pullbag listeners, though, here in the Pullbag. But as all 80s kids were, we loved having toys and playing with action figures and giant robots that turned into two things, and blonde guys with swords and loincloths for clothes.
Absolutely.
And, gray castles or green castles in that case. But because my parents were divorced, I had my Castle Grayskull and all. For some reason, I don't know why, I had all my heroic warriors at my mom's house. And I had Snake Mountain and all the evil warriors at my dad's house. It's like, how the hell are they going to fight if they're at two different places?
Freud would have torn that one apart, man. I think you were trying to say something about your mom and
yeah, probably. I went down to my dad's one time. We were living in my mom and I were living in Massachusetts at the time because I'm originally from up there, and dad was living in Rhode Island at that time, and went down there and went into my room expecting to play with all my toys. I was 6 years old. He sold them all. Said I was too old for toys.
That's rough, man. My dad took the opposite approach. He packed them all up. Once he thought I was too old for toys, he just packed them all up. He wasn't going to get rid of them. Maybe, give them to the next generation, which is what I'm going to do. But,
Yes.
I still have almost all of them. A while ago, I foolishly went through and got rid of all the broken ones. Probably should have tried to do something with them, but those were the loved ones, right? Those are the ones you played with the most if they got broken. So.
Yeah. If you broke a toy, that's the one you banged up and played with the most.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's the same thing with with your dad's comic story. It's like, oh God, parents, damn it.
Hey, at least you sold it instead of just throwing it in a fire.
Yeah, that's true. All right, so later in life, as you're growing up, are you still reading the Marvel stuff, or had you decided to explore outwards?
It took a very, very long time until I got into anything other than Marvel. Especially because, being a kid, like I was, again, in the 80s. I was born in 82. So I was, quote-unquote, reading comics all through the 80s. And then you had that Marvel explosion in the early 90s with the like of, Jim Lee's, Chris Claremont and Jim Lee's X-Men, #1. Holy cow. I have vivid memory of getting in trouble in class because I was trying to read my X-Men comics instead of whatever the hell I was supposed to be doing. We would read them on the playground and play with the Secret Wars toys and all. The Spawn toys were right around the corner from there too. So I had a little bit of exposure to Spawn through the toys because somebody would bring in a comic that wasn't Marvel and I'm like, what is this? Because my only exposure, as most kids, is what your parents provide you. You might get a little bit of exposure from other friends or things like that, but most of my friends also read Marvel because what 9-10-year-old wasn't reading X-Men or watching the cartoon or playing with the toys? X-Men were everywhere, and that was Marvel. And then you had the Clone Saga with Spider-Man, which I know most people like to crap on. I love it. That was like when I actually started was legitimately reading comics, not just looking at the pictures, not just reading it and forgetting about it, but really reading it and getting into it and becoming invested. That was the Clone Saga for me. I was hook, line, and sinker on the Clone Saga. I loved it, and I understand its flaws as an adult, but I still look back fondly on it. Like there's this adage in collecting or reading or whatever you want to call it that whatever you started reading is your golden age. Well, I was kind of always reading, but that was when I got invested. And so that early to mid 90s boom that everybody wants to crap on all the time, that's just right in my wheelhouse, and I just can't not be so in love when I think about that early 90s stuff, especially X-Men and Spider-Man. The Scarlet Spider wore a hoodie with the sleeves torn off. How cool was that guy? I still think he's amazing. The Scarlet Spider series that Marvel just canned, unfortunately, with Kane as the Scarlet Spider now. That's all going right back to the Clone Saga, and when again I first became truly invested in those stories and those characters, and then junior high kind of rolled around, and I got the impression it wasn't cool to be reading comics, and I spent a lot of misspent years trying to fit in or be normal or whatever it was in high school, and I look back on that, and I don't want to complain about high school because I had friends and a somewhat of a social life and stuff, but it was easier to hide what became my Star Wars obsession than it was my comic book obsession. I don't know how that is the case, but I kind of shifted from comic books to Star Wars because the EU explosion and all those great novels we had during the quote unquote dark times. That was kind of where my focus went, and I read any Star Wars novel they put out. I just tore it up. I loved those things. And I discovered Star Wars very, very late, actually. Speaking of X-Men in 5th grade, I didn't discover Star Wars until 5th grade. I grew up a Star Trek kid because, again, that was what my dad liked. Not that he didn't like Star Wars, but he was a Star Trek guy first and foremost. And I grew up on Next Generation. To this day, I love Next Generation. And one day we were in class or at recess or wherever we were arguing about who could beat who, right? Those great little kid superhero discussions you have. And we got onto Wolverine versus Darth Vader.
Oh my God.
And I was like, you're out of your mind. I don't know who Darth Vader is, but there's no way he could be Wolverine. I had no idea who Darth Vader was. But I wasn't, based on how all the other kids were talking, I wasn't about to admit that. You know, I kept my mouth shut. And I went home, and I was like, Dad, who's Darth Vader? And he just gave me this blank look like I've failed you as a father. And that night we popped popcorn and we watched Star Wars, and it was awesome. And I don't know. I know I watched Star Wars first, but I always have memories of Jedi. I think Jedi was just my favorite, and that was the one I watched over and over again as a kid. And then when the books came out, because there was nothing else, right? You just had those 3 films at that time. Yeah. And then Heir to the Empire comes out, and boom, there's this huge explosion. So I could hide reading Star Wars novels a little easier, junior high and into high school. I didn't let my nerd flag fly. I didn't say it loud, didn't say it proud. I kind of hid that from anybody on fear of death. Or social death anyway. And then when I went to college, I kind of got back into that stuff a little bit just because, I mean, college is that great atmosphere that there's whatever you can think of, there's a group on campus into it or dedicated to it or both. And you kind of get exposed to, I mean, even things like Magic again. Like I never really played it all that much, but it was like, look at these people playing Magic out in the open. They're not afraid of, whatever. Like I'm sure they were getting made fun of by somebody walking by, but they didn't care. And that was a huge thing for me. Like, oh, they don't care. Neither do I. The only problem was I couldn't afford any of it because I was in college, and what little money I had went to beer and pizza and trying to get laid. So not that I spent money on that, but you know what I mean. It costs money. It costs money, Anyway,
it's a good thing you saved yourself from that.
Yeah, I realized how bad that sounded, but my last full year of college, my roommate was just a huge nerd. Like, I mean, and I say that in the best way possible. And we became such good friends, and we both kind of fed off each other. We both got back into action figures because we had each other to share the love with and bounce ideas off of, and concepts and ideas. And hey, do you remember this comic? Oh yeah, there's got to be a comic store around here somewhere, right? Let's go to it. And we both like totally just fell in love with comics again, fell in love with action figures again. And that was 2004. And that finally brings us up to my exploring of DC.
Oh boy.
It was Identity Crisis. Identity Crisis was the book that got me into DC. Before that, I'd maybe read a Superman here and there, like Batman Nightfall. I know I read, or at least looked through when it was coming out. But it was Identity Crisis. I was blown away by that story, despite the fact that I had no idea who these people were. Mm-hmm. Like, despite not knowing, I mean, I didn't even know who Green Arrow was. I didn't know. I knew that. I'm trying to think. It wasn't Barry in that story. Well, a little bit because of the flashback, but like I didn't know who this other Flash guy was. I only know Deathstroke the Terminator was in it. I only knew him because of an old X-Men Teen Titans crossover from back in the day. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but if you're not, you need to track it down to read it because it's amazing. So I knew who Deathstroke the Terminator was, and I knew he was not to be trifled with, and I wasn't surprised when he took out that little faction of the Justice League in I think it was the second or third issue of that story. But I didn't know who Elongated Man was, and that was who it was all about. I didn't get any of the nods or any of the references to what was coming. Really, was a lot of it, and because that led into Infinite Crisis. And I mean, again, I ate that thing up. I was so engrossed in DC at that time. Rebirth. I didn't know Hal Jordan was dead, much less coming back, but everybody was talking about it because I was going back to comic book stores again, and that community and that awesomeness, and I was like, all right, I'll read Rebirth, sure, why not? I didn't know what the hell's going on, but it looked pretty. And the countdown to Infinite Crisis, though, that 80-page $1 countdown special they put out, that thing blew me away. I fell in love with Ted Kord in those pages, only to have him taken away from me at the end of it. Spoiler alert for a 10-year-old comic. And then that's like driven me nuts now. And actually, I'm glad now. Apparently, he's coming back in Forever Evil #7. But like they had so many chances to bring this character back, who I met and fell in love with, and had taken away from me in the course of 80 pages, and they didn't bring him back in Brightest Day. They didn't bring him back with New 52, and I'm going out of my mind about it. But apparently now he is finally, quote unquote, coming back. But we'll see what kind of capacity it's going to be in. So that was when I finally got into DC. To very long-windedly answer your question.
All right. So nowadays, are you still Marvel, or have you jumped ship to DC?
I am still Marvel, especially now. I am just in love with almost everything Marvel is doing. I've not been this excited about X-Men since those 5th grade playground discussions I was just talking about. I think what Marvel is doing with X-Men right now is beyond phenomenal. I love the Schism. I love the Split. I love... All New X-Men is probably one of the best comics being published right now, in my opinion. And this comes from a lifelong diehard Spider-Man fan who is in love with everything that Dan Slott is doing. but good Lord, all new X-Men is just absolutely terrific and insane. I tried really hard to get on board with New 52 because I'd always kind of, since Infinite Crisis, I kind of came and went with DC, whether or not the story interests me. Like I went back and I read Crisis and things like that. And I want to be a DC fan so much. It sounds weird to say, like go out and do it, right? But it's overwhelming. It really is. So I go to New 52 thinking, this is my clean slate. This is it. And no, not a clean slate. They kept this. They didn't keep that. They did this. They did that. A lot of it was just plain bad, regardless of continuity. So I started off reading 20-something of the 52 books. And within 6 months, I was down to 9. And now I read Wonder Woman, Aquaman. I stopped reading Batman during the whole the second time they tried to make it a crossover event that's not really an event. I just got pissed at Batman, so I stopped reading that, but I'll come back soon.
Don't. It's not worth it.
Well, as soon as this 0 year, or whatever it's called, as soon as that's done, I'll come back and see what's going on. I'm actually really liking Batman and Robin, or what Batman and Two-Face, whatever that's become. I really like Gleason and Tomasi as a creative team, way back from their days on Green Lantern Corps. So I'll read anything those guys are working on together. What else DC am I reading right now? I can't believe they're coming out with the second Aquaman series. I love the main book, but I cannot believe they're coming out with the second one. Earth 2 I really like because it's the characters I'm kind of familiar with, but not really, so I don't get all in a tizzy about the continuity. It's the quote-unquote Golden Age characters, but now they're modern and yada, yada, yada. I appreciate the nods without getting upset about the nods, if that makes sense. I know enough to go, that's a reference to this, but not in love with that reference enough to be upset by it. And then what's the other? Well, The World's Finest, I guess, is kind of the companion to Earth 2, sort of. Batman, Superman, I'm loving Batman, Superman, especially that first arc with the Jay Lee artwork. God, that was amazing.
I tried 2 issues. I was out.
Was it the art? Was it the story? What was it?
No, it was this issue 1 was the story, because I didn't. Okay, I understood that there was some sort of dimensional shift or some sort of time shift, but issue 1 just ends on this unknown villain, to me at least, unknown villain, and I was like, what the hell's going on? I read issue 2 and I'm like, okay, I get it. They're 2 different worlds. Mm-hmm. There are four characters, 2 Supermen, 2 Batmen, and each of them are from different worlds. I get it. At this point, I just don't care.
To me, the interaction was just so much fun. The parts that didn't make sense I didn't care, because the interaction between them and what Greg Pak did with that dialogue and stuff was just amazing.
I did. I love the dialogue in issue 1. I love the monologues between the 2 of them.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was great, but just I don't know. It just
no. It's hey, not everything's for everybody. I hear you.
Yeah.
I think that's about it. I can't think of anything else I'm reading. Unchained, but that's turned into be a miniseries apparently, because Jim Lee's schedule, can't keep a schedule. I'm kind of glad though. I was waiting on it, but now that I know it's a miniseries, I'm like, oh, they're just going to wrap up this story. I can deal with that. What else DC? That might be it. I guess Masters counts as a DC book, right?
Yeah, Masters counts as DC.
I'm actually kind of liking that. This last issue was god awful, but for the most part, I've really enjoyed the Horde coming and totally invading and what they've done with the Dora and stuff. I loved all that actually. So it's new and different, and I'm glad.
Yeah, and we'll see. Masters, okay, you really have to start with that. You have to start in 2012 with the mini, because the mini is really setting it up.
Right.
It really, really is, because you can only guess who the blue-handed, orange-robed guy is at the end. We all kind of know and kind of think in the back of our minds, but wait, how is that? What's going on? This isn't Filmation. Ow, 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 my head. But then then they do the 2013 ongoing, or what I assume is going to continue to be an ongoing.
If it's still going, it's got to be an ongoing.
Yeah, I know. Well, they said that somebody said something was going to be an ongoing, and then it turned into an 8-issue mini, and then it did this, and then it did that, whatever.
It happens, yeah.
Yeah, with Masters, I love it, because it's like, this is what any new cartoon should be now. Something that pays homage to Filmation, but isn't Filmation, and basically takes everything you know about these characters and I love and hate the fact that there is no secret. What I love about it is the fact that Randor knows, Teeland, everybody friggin' knows.
Right.
What I hate about it, at least recently, is no one ever calls him He-Man anymore.
Oh yeah, I can see that.
No,
Yeah.
I have in the from issue 6 to issue 9, I think is the most recent one that's out.
I think so.
I think
Yeah.
10 comes out in a couple weeks or is whatever. But it's like no one is calling him He-Man, and it's like, oh my god, come on now.
Yeah.
But no, the art.
Yeah.
I don't dislike it. It's because what I'm hating about comics now is keep the damn creative teams where they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
Stop changing artists every 4, 5, 6, 7. It's not just Masters. It's any comic. I don't get why that they have to change all of the time. Take my favorite DC book, which is Nightwing, and we'll be here all night. The focus will be off of you and back onto me, but it's just one of those things where what I don't get is, okay, I said this to someone in my local comic shop a while back, right after the announcement of that Nightwing 30 would be the final issue. I said, I get that that creators have to work on things in advance. Like they're working on Batman Eternal now to have it release in April.
Right.
I get that. I understand that. But why wouldn't you let the guy that relaunched Nightwing and made him so awesome finish it out instead of pulling him off at 20? Why pull Kyle Higgins off at 29 and not let him finish his own damn story?
Yeah. Well, did they pull him off or did he leave?
I don't know if he left, but he said on Facebook that Nightwing 29 would be his last issue. I don't know if that's him leaving or if that's DC saying, hey, you need to go over here now.
Right. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but that doesn't sound like a happy camper when he says that's going to be my last issue.
No, he was very respectful in the thing that he posted on Facebook. So but
we got to be professional. Sooner or later, you end up back at DC. So
yeah.
If that's the case, I have no idea. So I'm just. Yeah, I shouldn't be speculating if I don't know what I'm talking about.
Well, it's just one of those things that kind of makes me mad. That why if they I don't know if they pulled him off. Maybe I'm speaking incorrectly, but why?
Well, they've developed a pattern though of pulling or upsetting their creative talent and making them walk out. So I'm just going off of that pattern. I'm guessing
that's very true. All right. So what else are you reading besides the DC stuff and the Marvel stuff? Is there anything? I know you're reading Turtles.
Of course, reading Turtles. Love Turtles. That's definitely a top 5 book for me. It's so good, and that's what we were just talking about. It's something that pays homage to what came before while blazing a completely original and new trail. Excuse me.
Trail. Yeah.
Yeah. You got new characters, you have new concepts, you have new dynamics, things that I would. If you had said to me, "Hey, a new Turtles comic is going to contain this," and I don't want to say anything because you're behind, but I would have thought you're out of your mind. I'll never read that, and yet
I'm up to the first mini, or the first micro, I should say.
Okay.
I'm up to issue 8 of the ongoing. So, if you would have told me that they're going to include reincarnation, I'll look at you like you're crazy.
That was pretty much what I was getting at, and
yeah,
and they kind of solidify it later on.
Oh, yeah.
So,
yeah, they do, for at least as far as I've gotten, because they solidify it by Leo having all these visions and dreams and everything.
Mutagen's a hell of a drug. You don't know, but who knows? That doesn't mean anything. But there are some things later on that kind of definitely cement that. And I especially as I don't know if I like it. The way I put it in the podcast where we've covered it. I'm kind of on Team Donnie. Like, I don't know if it's legit or the real thing, but from a storytelling, like as a reader, I love it. It's very compelling and it's very different without, again, treading badly on what came before it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Reading a lot of Image, Saga, Rat Queens, was reading Manhattan Projects. I'm a little behind on that. Way behind on Morning Glories. but was loving both of those while I was reading them. I'm going to draw a blank now. What else am I reading? Star Wars and Star Trek, both liking both of those. Star Trek from IDW. I think IDW can almost do no wrong at this point. I think they've had like success after success. They do things with licensed properties that, as a lifelong comic reader, I didn't think you could pull off licensed comics the way they do. It's kind of amazing.
I didn't pick up any. I have yet to pick up any other Star Wars stuff. Or not, well, Star Wars is Dark Horse.
Star Wars
right?
is Dark Horse for the time being.
For the time being, and then it will be going back to Disney. I saw an article about that.
Yep.
But with IDW and Star Trek, I'm not the biggest Trekkie in the world. Like you, I grew up watching Next Gen, and then from 88, I don't know, somewhere around 93, 94, my dad tried to sit me down and watch Classic.
Okay.
Yeah, no.
Didn't know it worked for you, huh?
Didn't work whatsoever. I like all the classic lines. I like all the classic characters in general. So I'm a casual Star Trek fan. So I can go into a Star Trek movie with an open mind.
Right. I gotcha. Yeah.
The first one I liked. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was cool. The second one was okay. I think they were going for a little bit too much homage to all the different incarnations of Star Trek and certain things.
Right.
And yes, I understand it's a ripoff of Wrath of Khan, essentially. But
it's almost more of a ripoff of Space Seed if you really want to get into this right now. But
yeah, that's true. That's very true. It's one of those things though. When either right before or right after I saw the movie, I saw IDW announce or say that I think it's issue 25 or whatever it was of their series was going to be Star Trek After Dark. Learn what happens after the film.
That arc was awful.
I got it. I only got that one issue. I got Star Trek 25 and After Dark, and it's Spock going through Vulcan puberty. Okay, that story can be somewhat all right. I didn't like the art. That's the main reason why.
I ranted and raved about that in the issues I reviewed it. The episodes I reviewed it, definitely. I'd agree with that.
Because they basically tried to comicalize, and I don't mean as in funny, I mean as ripping something off the 3D screen to 2D comic, the movie characters and the actors, and it just didn't work. The images of the Enterprise, loved them. Absolutely great. The character designs and the art for those, oh god, no.
Yeah. Not to mention at that point you had, I mean, it was that like painterly 3D style, but then you had these obnoxious bright white word balloons, totally in contrast to the art. They looked terrible. Just to look at it, it looked terrible.
Yeah.
Like aesthetically, just like why would you have such a muted color palette and then bam, these giant white dialogue? And I get they're supposed to be white, but you don't have to make them white. Like you could mute that a little bit too, put a little beige on it or something, just so it doesn't pop off the page and look disgusting. Positive. Let's go back to something positive.
Transformers?
Not reading Transformers or G.I. Joe. I hope you don't
really
disconnect me after saying that. No.
Well, G.I. Joe. Yeah, I don't care for G.I. Joe. Why are you not reading either one of the Transformers ongoings?
It's mostly a lack of familiarity.
Okay.
I watched the cartoon as a kid. I only had like maybe one Transformer toy as a kid. I mean, I watched the movie. I loved the movie. Cried when Optimus died. Who didn't, right? But it's a total lack of familiarity for me. And there's like 3 of them right now. There's at least 2 ongoings.
Well, there's the 2 ongoings. There's Robots in Disguise, which is Bumblebee and everybody on Cybertron.
Okay.
And then there's More Than Meets the Eye.
Right.
Where it's Rodimus and a ragtag group of Autobots and others that jump on the Lost Light and go try to find the Knights of Cybertron.
None of that makes sense to me, by the way.
Basically, James Roberts, the writer of More Than Meets the Eye, said, "Screw you guys, we're leaving," and he just took them off Cybertron. More Than Meets the Eye, you have, other than knowing like characters like Chrome Dome and Rewind and Rodimus and Ultra Magnus and all that stuff, you don't need to know anything else because it's all new. It's all new. It's a whole new story. You should start with Death of Optimus Prime. If you're politically inclined, read Robots in Disguise because the first 14, 15 issues of that is Bumblebee trying to set up a new government on Cybertron. If you want a space adventure, go with More Than Meets the Eye because it is just amazing. It really, really is.
All right. Maybe I'll try it. I'm always advocating to just jump on, right? So maybe I'll take my own advice and see what happens there. So
let's see here. All right. So what would you say is your Holy Grail single issue? If you could ever have it, what would it be?
Just because he's my favorite character and I'm such a Marvel guy, it'd have to be Amazing Fantasy 15.
I figured you were going to say
Not the biggest surprise answer, I know.
No.
But Spider-Man is far and away my favorite character, and I mean that's got to be the Holy Grail. So
I love Spidey, don't get me wrong, and kind of like you, I grew up on the X-Men and Spidey cartoons.
Oh yeah.
And the Fantastic Four cartoon, as bad as it might be.
Oh, it's so bad.
As bad as it might be, it really made me want to seek out the comics that started those characters.
Well, then it did its job.
Same thing with Spidey, same thing with Iron Man. Now, Iron Man I will defend to a certain extent. The Iron Man cartoon series, I will defend season 2 because it had a really awesome theme song.
Gotcha.
So,
I really like the Fantastic Four cartoon they launched in, was it like 2004, 2005? It only ran like 13 episodes or something like that, but I really liked that cartoon. I thought that was awesome.
For me with Spidey, after watching the original 94 series and Unlimited, I know Unlimited gets a rare and unfair shake. I saw Unlimited as a continuation of the original series, and I saw the MTV series, and it was all right.
I hated the MTV series.
It was all right. They were trying to go off of the first film,
right?
You know, they were trying, and come on, it's MTV. I mean, you're supposed to be showing music on your television, not Spider-Man, you idiots.
Really, you're one of those guys that still complains about music not being on MTV?
Not very vocally, except for now. Let's see. I haven't seen all of Spectacular, but
so good.
I don't know if I can get past the animation style. I'm willing to give it a more honest try, but I do remember seeing like the first 3 or 4 episodes, and I'm like, no, this animation is just no.
It's definitely a unique style. I can't disagree with that.
I am really enjoying Ultimate Spidey though. That was really good. With Spider-Man though, my whole point here is there's only so many times I can see him fight Shocker, Doc Ock, Green Goblin, Hobgoblin, Venom. There's only so many times I can see that or read that in a comic. And I jumped on Amazing the last possible minute. I read 698 to 700.
Nice, yeah.
I read 698 to 700 and went straight into Superior. Superior is
it's amazing.
Superior is superior. It is amazing. It's one of those things where they took a concept, flipped it on its head, and basically tore Peter Parker's life apart with Doc Ock being in his body. But at the same time, not only did Doc Ock tear his personal life apart, he succeeded for Peter in his professional life. I mean, Peter's now a doctor. I mean,
now has his doctorate, now has his own business.
Yeah, but I'm loving Dan Slott's writing. I generally don't say negative things about the man, but I'm sorry. I read something online, him saying that that the plan all along was to have Superior end when it's at issue 31 or whatever else.
Nope, he's just being a good company man. He's full of it. I don't believe him either.
Okay, well, that's what I read. I read.
Yeah, I'm sure you did. I'm just saying. I don't believe in him either. That's all I'm saying.
You know, it's one of those things where he says that the plan all along was to end it at 31 and then bring Peter.
I was, as soon as Superior launched, I was like, great, this is so awesome. This is such a fresh breath of fresh air, change of pace. Yeah. Love it, love it, love it. But we all know that Peter's going to be back in his body before Amazing Spider-Man 2 hits theaters. That's just the way they do business. Because there's this imaginary group of people out there that Marvel and DC can't seem to get their head around, doesn't exist. They think they're going to go see Amazing Spider-Man 2 and then rush to the comic book store to buy all the Spider-Man, and they don't want them to be confused that Peter's not there. Those people don't exist. I mean,
what I don't understand is, how is it that, okay, and I'm not counting Superior Team Up and whatever other
all the Spidey books are so good right now, though.
Okay, right. But what I'm saying, okay, all right. How many Spidey books are there currently?
Well, Venom and Scarlet ended, so there's Superior Team Up, Superior Foes, Superior. There's at least one more I'm missing.
Okay, so let's say there's 4 Spidey titles.
Sure.
You mean to tell me that you cannot keep Dr. Octopus as Spidey and bring Peter back as a clone so the regular general audience that only wants to see the film can see that, okay, it's Peter back in his... I want it to be a split where Superior can continue and Amazing can kind of limp along its little path.
They did that. They did that film 13 years ago. It's called Ultimate Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Sorry to get all snarky on you there, but
no, it's fine.
That's pretty much what Ultimate Spider-Man started as, was that jumping on point for people who went and saw the movie.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like, why are you going to take away from us, the regular readers, who are like you and I, who are really enjoying this new twist,
for this group of people that doesn't exist?
Yeah, yep. Just because they want to bring in new readers and make sure that the new readers know, hey, it's Peter Parker because it's Peter Parker in the friggin'... You know what? Amazing Spider-Man 2... Okay, really, and I know they weren't going to do this, but if you had found a way to finish up Amazing 700 before the first film, you could have lined it up with having Superior be a film. I would love Superior as a film.
Yeah.
That would be awesome. The only complaint I really have with Superior is Black Cat wasn't in it enough.
Well, you could say that always.
It was like what was it? 5 pages of issue 20? Less than that, maybe a page and a half.
And she gets punched right in her beautiful face. Oh, God. I'm sorry. I cannot stand violence against women. It makes my blood boil. But
yeah, no,
that page cracked me up because it was such that's what Otto would do, right? Yeah. She's a criminal. He's not going to go for this whole little repartee the two of them have at all. So I thought it was brilliant, actually. And I will say the Pete coming back was inevitable. I hate the timing of it. It feels like the Superior thing is just getting going. But, and one of my favorite things about Spider-Man, and always has been, is the fact that Spider-Man is really one of the few heroes who still deals with an alter ego problem. Nobody cares what Bruce Wayne does with his time. Nobody cares. Most of these heroes don't deal with the alter ego issue. Spider-Man still does, and it's been the core of his character from day one. He's fighting with the Green Goblin, but Aunt May's sick across town in the hospital. He needs to get her the medicine, but he can't because he's up to his neck in pumpkin bombs. He's always dealt with that. And now, it's going to come to a head when Pete comes back. His life is effed because of all these things. Everybody's going to hate him, and people are dead, and all these things that he's going to have to deal with now, both as Spider-Man and Peter Parker. I can't wait to read those stories. I just would have preferred to wait 2 or 3 more years to do it.
I would see. That's the thing. It's like, why not wait until you get to outside of the whole we need to market because of movie, yay. Outside of that, why couldn't these series have at least gotten 50 issues? If Superior got 50 issues, I would have been happy. If Nightwing would have gotten another story arc and Kyle was allowed to do the story that he wanted to do because I think with Dick being in Chicago, Kyle's next kind of story after the prankster was going to be exploring Chicago's past with superheroes and all this. And all. Why can't... And I know these books sell fairly well. I mean,
I know Dick has a huge following. I can't believe that that's not selling well enough to, justify its continued existence.
yeah, just anyway.
What are you gonna do?
All right, so yeah. So, is there anything that you will recommend to the listeners that they check out that they may not already be reading?
Something kind of, I guess, to go. I mean, I love superheroes, obviously, right? Anybody that's listened to me this last chunk of time we've been talking, it should be pretty clear. But to go recommend something kind of off the beaten path, Saga. I mean, there are a couple volumes in at this point, but man, Saga is good. It's adult, so just know that going in. There's a new series. It's only 2 issues in. I think it's only 2 issues in. Manifest Destiny from Image Comics. This is a retelling of Lewis and Clark's expedition to the Pacific, except the unexplored territories west of St. Louis are filled with monsters and witches and all sorts of creepy supernatural stuff. And it's only 2 or 3 issues deep at the moment, but man, is it a lot of fun. Anybody who likes an alternate history kind of thing with a big sci-fi fantasy twist definitely would recommend that.
As long as it's not a vampire hunter or
no vampires, or at least not yet.
Or a hobo with a shotgun. I'll be... No, I said that wrong. As long as it's not a dead president as a vampire hunter or a hobo with a shotgun, I might check it out.
Nope. Buffalo Minotaurs is what they've dealt with mostly so far.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's pretty badass. Really, 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 really off the beaten path. Todd, the Ugliest Kid on Earth. They just finished up their 2nd volume, so both the trades are going to be out very soon. I don't even know how to describe this. It's the most perverted, depraved, hysterical comic I've ever read in my life.
So it's something similar to the lines of Kick-Ass?
It's more demented than Kick-Ass. It's the most it's the most depraved thing I've ever read in my life, and it has Charlie Rose as a leader of a satanic cult. Yeah, that's just to give you an idea of where they're at with that. And then a little more family friendly, Skyward from Action Lab Entertainment.
Okay.
Love it. It's so old 80s fantasy, like Black Cauldron, Labyrinth, even Masters of the Universe. It's got a really cool young protagonist, like a little kid. It's very family friendly, young, all ages kind of comic. It's so much fun to read. It's at the top of my stack every time. So that would be my recommendation. It's kind of off the beaten path. So
for me, how far did you follow the DC animated universe?
I didn't really make it much past Batman the Animated Series, to be honest with you.
What?
Yeah, here and there. I love it. I watch it all the time, I watch it all the time, meaning when I catch it. But it wasn't anything I ever felt the need to sit down and watch all of it, kind of thing. So,
all right. Well, your homework between now and the next time you're on this show.
Got it.
Check out Batman Beyond.
That is definitely the one I've seen the most of, other than animated series.
Oh, okay.
But no, I'm way behind though. Don't start grilling me on it. I'm not.
No, I'm not going to grill you. I'm telling you, you have to watch all 52 episodes. I think it's 52 episodes of Batman Beyond, because the current line of comics that started last year, started in 2012, going into what's going on now. Kyle Higgins is writing it now.
Okay.
And he loves that universe, and he's doing all kinds of cool things with it. And the storyline prior to it that was written by, got the trade over on my shelf. What is it? Adam Beecham or Beecham?
Okay.
I think it's Beecham. He started the 2012 run, and the first arc is 10,000 Clowns, and it's really, really amazing what Kyle is doing, because Kyle is an amazing fan of the DCAU. He's tying all kinds of stuff in. It's very, very awesome. I would highly recommend that.
Well, that's I'm gonna have to at this point, because our friend Sween Hollick, who co-hosts with me on our Turtle comic podcast, loves Batman Beyond and has been pressuring me to do it for a while now. So. That's one more harping on me to do it, so I'm gonna have to do it at some point.
Awesome. All right, so where can the folks interact with you online? Where can they find your podcasts, any of that good stuff?
Well, we just came out, we being pretty much me, even though I do have various co-hosts for certain things, just came out with episode 161, which was all about Star Wars, speculation on episode 7 and the upcoming Rebels, which I'm insanely excited for. If you listen to it, you will understand. All of that is over at positivelynerdy.com. Not quite all 161 episodes, but I'm working on an archive to get the rest of them up on the website. I have written comic reviews there. I do a weekly top 5 list every Tuesday of whatever I feel like. We got a new box office time machine feature coming up pretty soon, too. All of everything I do is at positivelynerdy.com. It's your one-stop shop for everything. Of course, you can subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher to listen to just the podcast, and you can always find me on Twitter at positivelynerdy. So,
awesome. So, next time on the Pull Bag, I think it's going to be. It's probably going to be the start of Marvelous March, our March event that we're going to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think Ryan will be able to get his homework done in time, but it'll be all right.
You don't think I'll be able to get it done?
I don't know. 52 episodes in less than a month.
I have to get that homework done on top of the other. No, not happening. But I will. I'll start. I'll definitely start. We'll discuss my progress.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So yeah, coming up next on the Pull Bag will be Marvelous March, where we talk about 5 of the core Marvel characters. We're going to discuss 2 trades per episode. First one being a team-up of Captain America and Hulk, and then Spidey, Iron Man, and Wolverine. After that, closing it out. For now, I am TFG and Mike with
Ryan Porter.
And we will catch you next time. Make your great escape into comics.
It's action. It's drama. It's comedy. It's DeCian, the superhero webcomic. DeCian has superhero antics and sexy girls. Catch updates weekly at DeCian.com and NoSuperPants.com.
Hey, Geekcast listeners. Do you ever listen to Punisher Body Count and think to yourself, this show would be awesome if it had less toilet humor and was not about the Punisher? If so, join me, Emily Williams, as I class up the Punisher guys on Dane and Jake Get Classy. We're like the Oprah Book Club of comics. You'll hear us discuss famous works like The Dark Knight Returns and The Crow, along with graphic novels no one else is talking about, like Blue Monday and Blankets. You can find us at daneandjakegetclassy.wordpress.com or on iTunes.
You just heard the latest episode of The Pull Bag, GCRN's comic book review podcast. There are several ways to get in touch with us and leave feedback for the show. You can visit the website, geekcastradio.com, where you can comment on the episode and all of our different podcasts. You can rate our show on iTunes. Be sure to leave us feedback. Call the voicemail line, 502-526-5821. Please remember to tell us the show you were leaving the message for and your name. Become a fan of us on Facebook by searching Geekcast Radio Network. You can send us an email, feedback@geekcastradio.com. Follow us on Twitter @GeekCastRadio. So until next time, unleash the geek in you.